My father told me that my responsibility was to work, so my younger brother could live comfortably because that's how families work. So I quietly moved out and showed them how families really worked. I'm 29 years old. Until recently, I thought I understood what family meant. I believed it was about mutual support, unconditional love, and being there for one another when life got messy. But that illusion really unraveled in the most brutal and humiliating way one Tuesday evening over meatloaf and mashed potatoes. My father Frank, a stern, stoic man who rarely showed emotion unless he was mad, looked me dead in the eye with a calmness that chilled me to the bone and said, "You work so your brother can have a good life. That's just how families work." My mother didn't argue, she didn't blink. She just nodded like a puppet that had run out of strings to pull. The room felt quiet after that, not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that makes your skin crawl. My younger brother Jason was seated across from me, smirking slightly, shoveling another bite of food into his mouth, without a care in the world. Jason, who hadn't held a job for longer than 3 months at a time, who had crashed 2 cars I helped pay for, who once called me crying at 3 a.m. because he overdrafted his account trying to impress some girl at a rooftop bar. Yeah, that Jason. I stared at them, my so-called family, and it hit me like a truck. I was never a son to them. I was a resource, a walking bank account, their safety net, their invisible lifeline. I didn't say a word that night. I finished my dinner in silence, pushing down every feeling crawling up my throat. Anger, betrayal, sadness. I smiled weakly when Mom offered pie, said, "No thanks. I've got work early tomorrow," and excused myself. But when I got home to my apartment, a place I paid for but rarely lived in, because I was always driving back to their house to help out, I sat down on the edge of the bed and let it all hit me. 29 years. 29 years of picking up the pieces for them. Of saying it's okay when they forgot my birthday again. Of loaning money with no expectation of it coming back. Of bailing Jason out because he's just struggling right now. Of listening to Dad's rants about how I owed this family everything because they took me in when I had no one, as if I hadn't spent the last decade paying that debt 10 times over. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at my desk running through everything in my head, the endless list of things I'd sacrificed: relationships, travel hobbies, even job opportunities because they needed me. I remembered how just a few months ago I had turned down a project lead role in another city because it would have been too far from home, and Dad guilt-tripped me into thinking I was abandoning them. Jason needed help. Mom needed help. The dog needed surgery. The roof needed replacing. There was always something. Always. The next day I called out of work not because I was sick, but because I was done. I took out a couple of boxes, started packing up the essentials. I contacted my job and asked if the out-of-state transfer was still open. Turns out it was. I started making arrangements quietly, no announcements, no warnings. I withdrew from the shared account I'd been stupid enough to let them access. Yup. My paycheck went into an account where Mom handled family expenses. I canceled the auto payments on their bills. I called the insurance company and took my name off their policy. They didn't even notice, too used to things just magically getting paid. For 2 weeks I played the role. I smiled during dinners. I helped Jason with his side business, which basically meant I wrote resumes for job interviews he never showed up to. I nodded politely when Dad went on about family values and how I'd never understand real responsibility. It was like watching a play you already knew the ending to. But I was calm. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was the one in control, like the strings weren't attached to me anymore. Then came the moment, a Friday evening late spring. Warm breeze, lawn, freshly cut, the smell of barbecue in the air. Dad was in the backyard, beer in hand, talking to a neighbor about how hard it is raising 2 boys, like I was still a teenager crashing on his couch. Jason was in the garage trying to fix the motorcycle I had bought him last year. Mom was inside on the couch watching one of those crime shows she liked. I walked in with 2 bags and my laptop case. "Going somewhere?" Dad asked, not even turning to look. "Yeah," I said casually. "Moving?" Jason peeked his head out, a confused frown on his face. "Moving." "What do you mean I'm done?" I said calmly, not looking at any of them. "You wanted me to work so Jason could live a good life." "Well, congrats. Now you can figure out how to make that happen without me." Mom stood up, face pale. "Eric, what are you talking about? What's going on? I've been your crutch for years, paying for everything, bailing you out, being your emotional and financial punching bag. But I'm not doing it anymore. I've accepted a transfer. I'm leaving the state. And before you say anything, I left the bills in the mail. They're due next week. Dad laughed. Actually laughed. You're being dramatic. You'll be back. You always come back. I looked at him for a long time, his smug expression, his absolute certainty that I'd always be there no matter how badly they treated me. No, I said, not this time. I turned and walked out. I didn't run. I didn't slam the door. I just walked. And the silence behind me, that was the best sound I'd ever heard. But the fallout, oh, the fallout, didn't take long. It started the very next morning. First, there were missed calls, a dozen of them, all from Mom. Then came the texts. Eric, your father is furious. Please call me. We need to talk about this. This isn't how we solve family problems. I didn't respond. I turned off read receipts and silenced my phone. I spent the morning unpacking boxes in my new apartment halfway across the state, sipping coffee in peace for the first time in what felt like years. The quiet was unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. For once, there wasn't a constant list of demands buzzing around my head. By the afternoon, my dad had stepped in. His texts were less gentle. You think you're better than us now. Don't forget who raised you. You're just having a tantrum. Grow up and come home. I sat on the couch reading each one like they were lines in a bad play. No apology, no accountability, just the usual manipulation wrapped in entitlement. I didn't answer him either. By Monday, the panic had set in. Jason texted, bro, did you shut off the Wi-Fi? None of our stuff is working. Then, wait, is the electric out too? And finally, yo, why is the landlord saying we owe $1,400? I'd already informed the landlord that I would no longer be covering rent. My name had been taken off the lease 2 weeks before I left. Jason had no idea because he never paid attention to anything he didn't directly benefit from. I knew exactly how this would unfold. I wasn't being cruel. I was being fair. For the first time in my life, I was holding them accountable. That evening, I got a voicemail from Mom. She didn't yell, but her voice was shaking, not with sadness, but with fear. Real, honest fear. Eric, I need you to understand. Your father, he's not taking this well. The power's out. I can't even heat up food. Jason has no way to get to his interview tomorrow. The car insurance lapsed. Please, honey, this isn't right. We're your family. That word family used like a weapon again, but this time it didn't pierce me. It bounced right off. Over the next few days, the messages turned into pleas. Jason sent a voice note. Come on, man. I've got nothing right now. Just help us get back on our feet. 1 month, that's all I'm asking, just until I get this job. I didn't play it. I didn't have to. I already knew the script by heart. Then came the guilt, a handwritten letter from my mom, forwarded by a mutual cousin who lived nearby. It was long, emotional. She talked about raising me, about birthday parties, scraped knees, school plays. She reminded me of the Christmas I got the bike I'd always wanted, the time she stayed up with me all night when I had the flu. And for a moment, I almost softened. But then I remembered what she said the night Dad told me I was working to give Jason a good life. She nodded, silent, compliant. Not even a flicker of defense for me. Not a whisper of dissent. That was her choice. And this was mine. A week passed. I started settling into my new life. I got coffee with a coworker who also transferred from our home office. I went to the gym. I even picked up my old hobby again, painting, something I hadn't done since college. My apartment didn't feel like a crash pad anymore. It felt like mine, clean, quiet, free of expectations. The weight was gone from my chest, and I started sleeping through the night for the first time in years. But back home, things were spiraling. Word got around. My cousin told me the power still hadn't been turned back on. Jason missed his interview. The cable was cut. My dad tried to apply for a loan in my name. He still had old documents of mine, but thankfully I'd frozen my credit. He was furious, storming down to the bank only to be told he didn't have access anymore. He sent me a single text after that. One line, "You'll regret this." No, I wouldn't. The kicker came when Mom tried to sell my old car, the one I'd let Jason borrow. Turns out it was still under my name. I'd reported it stolen the day after I moved. Cops didn't arrest anyone, but they did show up at the house. That must have been a real moment of clarity for them. The car was impounded. Jason raged on social media, writing cryptic posts about betrayal and fake family. I didn't respond, but they weren't done yet. Not even close. Late one night, I got a knock on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole and froze. My father standing there in his wrinkled polo and scuffed boots, fists clenched, eyes wild. He knocked again, louder this time. "Eric, open this damn door." I stood completely still, heart hammering in my chest. He shouldn't have known where I lived. I had gone to lengths to keep it private. I hadn't told anyone the exact address, just the city. Then I remembered something. 2 weeks ago, Mom asked if I could at least send Jason the name of the complex so he could look into transferring schools. I thought nothing of it. I didn't give a unit number, didn't think they'd come here, but now he was outside, furious, unhinged. "Eric, don't make me call the cops on my own son," he yelled. The irony almost made me laugh, but I didn't open the door. I stepped back, picked up my phone, and dialed the number I'd saved just in case this very moment ever came. "Hi. Yes, I need to report someone trespassing at my apartment. He's shouting, won't leave. I believe he followed me from another city. His name is Frank Collins." "Yes, my father." As I watched his silhouette pacing behind the peephole, muttering and swearing to himself, sirens began to echo in the distance. And in that moment, I realized something. For the first time in my life, they were finally going to learn what life costs without their personal ATM. By the time the patrol car pulled up outside, my father was still standing on the walkway, arms crossed like he owned the building, like he could knock once, and I'd come crawling back with an apology and a checkbook. But when those red and blue lights hit his face, I watched something shift in his expression. It wasn't panic, not yet. It was confusion, like he couldn't believe this was actually happening, like he was the one being wronged. I cracked the window slightly from behind the blinds and listened. One of the officers, a calm but firm woman, approached him. "Sir, we got a call about a disturbance. Do you live here?" "No, but my son does," he barked, emphasizing the word like it gave him rights. "I'm here because he's lost his damn mind and I need to talk to him." The officer nodded slowly. "And he asked you to come here?" He hesitated. "No, but I'm his father." "We have business?" "Business doesn't entitle you to show up at someone's residence uninvited and start yelling," she said. "I'm going to need you to leave the premises." That was when he snapped. "You don't understand," he growled. "That ungrateful little brat owes me everything. I worked 2 jobs when he was a kid. I gave him a roof. Now he thinks he's too good for us. He cuts us off. Lets his mother sit in a freezing house, and I'm just supposed to walk away." The officer didn't flinch. "Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time. Leave the property, or I'll have no choice but to escort you off." He stared at her, breathing heavily, then glanced up toward my window, as if he knew I was watching. His face twisted with a look I'd seen only a handful of times in my life. Not anger, not disappointment, something deeper, powerlessness. It wasn't a look my father wore often. He was a man who commanded, who demanded, and for the first time someone else was drawing the lines. He turned slowly, muttered something under his breath and walked away. His shoulders tense like they were made of rope pulled too tight. The officers waited until he was fully down the street before getting back in the car. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about what he said about how he framed himself as the victim, how easily he slipped into that role the second things stopped going his way. And part of me still questioned if I was doing the right thing. After all, this was my family, my blood. But every time that doubt crept in, I remembered the night at the dinner table, the way he said, "You work so your brother can have a good life." Like I was a tool, not a person. Like my existence had a function, and when it stopped being useful, I'd be cast aside. The next morning, I got an email from my mother. Subject line, "Please just read. Eric. I don't agree with how your father handled things. I never have, but I also didn't stop him, and for that, I'm sorry. I think I let fear make me quiet for too many years. I've depended on you more than I should have, and I see now how unfair that's been. Your father is stubborn, but he's also scared. The world is changing around him, and he doesn't know how to live in it. Jason? Well, Jason has never had to learn to be independent. Maybe we all did you a disservice by making you carry the weight for so long. I won't ask you to come back, but please let's talk. Just you and me. No pressure, no guilt. I miss you. Mom." I sat with that email for a long time. It wasn't an apology, not a full one anyway, but it was something a crack in the armor. And it was the first time she used the word unfair. That alone made me pause. But the idea of talking to her, just her, felt like a minefield because I didn't trust myself not to cave if she started crying. I'd always been soft when it came to Mom. She wasn't the loud one. She didn't throw things or raise her voice. But her silence was its own kind of violence, especially when I was growing up, and Dad's rants would echo through the house and she'd sit in the next room pretending not to hear. A few days passed. I didn't respond. I went to work, kept my head down, met a few more coworkers. There was a girl named Lena from marketing who invited me out for drinks with a group. I almost said no, but then I thought, why not? It was the first time in years I had nothing tying me down. No excuse to hide behind, no family emergency waiting to drag me back. That night I laughed more than I had in months, maybe years. And when I got home, I sat down at my desk, opened Mom's email again, and typed a short reply. I'm not ready to talk. Maybe one day, but not yet. I hovered over the send button for a moment, then clicked it. The next morning, I had another message, not from Mom, from Jason. Subject line, "You're really proud of yourself, huh? Can't believe you're just letting us crash and burn. You're sick. You think this makes you strong? It doesn't. It makes you cold. You're not better than us, Eric. You're just bitter. Enjoy your little escape while it lasts. We'll see how far you get when no one's there to cover for you anymore." I didn't reply. I didn't even finish reading it. Instead, I walked to the window, looked out at the street below, calm, bright, filled with people who didn't know me or what I had just walked away from. It was terrifying and exhilarating. And deep down, I knew Jason wasn't done. He wasn't going to let go that easily. He was just getting started. I didn't reply to Jason's email. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what it was, the last desperate scream of someone whose safety net had been cut, flailing for a ledge that no longer existed. For years, Jason had coasted on the assumption that someone else, me, would always take the fall, always show up, always pay. He wasn't prepared for a world where consequences actually landed in his lap. But I was. I'd lived in that world all my life. 2 weeks passed. Things got quiet. No more voicemails, no texts. I thought maybe they were finally getting it. Maybe Dad had found some other scapegoat, or Jason had found a way to manipulate someone else into footing his bills. I allowed myself a cautious sense of peace. I was sleeping better, working harder, talking to Lena more. I'd even started looking into buying my own place, something I never imagined doing before because I was too wrapped up in everyone else's problems to consider my own future. But then came the knock. I was getting ready for work, half-tied coffee in hand, when someone pounded on the door. Not a knock, a pound. I froze. Something about it felt wrong. I looked through the peephole. Jason. He looked like a mess, greasy hair, faded hoodie, backpack slung over one shoulder like a kid who'd missed the school bus. His eyes were sunken and his jaw was twitching. I didn't open the door. I spoke through it. "What do you want?" "You serious, man?" His voice cracked, high-pitched with desperation. "You're really going to talk to me through a door? After everything?" "Yes," I said. "After everything." He stepped back, ran a hand through his hair. "I just need a place to crash. 2 nights, 3 max. I've got a friend in Ohio who said he'd help me out, but I need a few days. I missed my last bus because my phone died. Please, Eric." My hands curled into fists at my sides, not out of anger, out of muscle memory, the urge to help, to fix, to rescue. It was still there, buried deep like a splinter under the skin. But I took a breath and pushed it down. "No." He blinked. "No. Just no." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. "You made your choices. You lived off me for years. Now it's time you live with the consequences." He stared at the door for a long moment like he thought it might suddenly vanish and I'd be standing there with open arms. But when nothing happened, he snapped. "You think you're some kind of hero now? You think cutting us off makes you strong? You're pathetic, Eric. You're not better than me. You're just alone." I smiled faintly. Being alone doesn't scare me anymore. He kicked the door just once, a loud, frustrated bang that made the frame shudder. Then he walked away, muttering something I didn't catch. I waited 5 minutes, then looked out the window. He was gone. The next day, I called the property manager and installed a camera over my door just in case. But that was the last time I saw Jason in person. What came next was predictable. The family gossip train started chugging. Aunt Linda called me out of nowhere, pretending to check in but clearly fishing for dirt. My cousin Leo texted, "Heard Jason's couch surfing. What's going on, man?" Even my old high school best friend got a message from my dad, trying to reach me through someone I still respected. But I stayed quiet until the final straw. I got a certified letter, thick envelope from a law office. Inside a lawsuit, Frank and Margaret Collins versus Eric Collins. They were suing me for financial abandonment for failure to provide ongoing familial support under implied agreement. Their lawyer claimed I had created a verbal contract by consistently supporting them and that I owed them compensation for damages they'd suffered after my departure. I sat there stunned, laughing, then not laughing. I read it over and over again like it might turn into a joke if I squinted hard enough, but it was real. And it was the moment everything truly snapped into focus. They didn't love me. They never saw me as a son. They saw me as a wallet, a plan, a policy. And now that their policy had lapsed, they wanted to sue the insurance company. I hired a lawyer the next morning. I showed her every document I'd kept, screenshots of texts, old bank statements, auto deposits, the shared utility accounts in my name, the email from Mom, the voicemail from Jason, the text where Dad said, "You work so your brother can have a good life." It wasn't just helpful. It was a goldmine. Their case fell apart in court like wet tissue. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, took one look at the evidence and dismissed the suit outright. She even scolded their attorney for wasting the court's time with something so transparently manipulative. My lawyer asked for court costs. The judge approved them. They owed me $4,200 in legal fees. They didn't pay, so we garnished their tax return. I didn't want to do that, but I did, because that's how the real world works. The one I live in now, the one they tried to keep me from entering, because they knew deep down that once I did, I wouldn't come back. I heard through a cousin that Jason moved in with an old girlfriend, that he's working part-time delivering packages. Good. Maybe for the first time in his life, he'll learn how to survive without someone else covering his rent. My dad is still angry, still bitter. Apparently, he tells anyone who will listen that I betrayed the family, but nobody's really listening anymore. And my mom, she sent me one last letter. No guilt this time, just a single paragraph. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you're doing okay. I was wrong to stay quiet for so long. Whatever happens next, I hope you're happy. You deserve to be." I haven't responded. Maybe one day I will. Maybe not. Because I am happy. For the first time in my adult life, I wake up without a weight pressing on my chest. I go to work and come home to silence. I choose. I spend my money on me. I laugh with friends who don't need anything from me. And I've started dating Lena slowly, carefully, honestly. The man I used to be, panicked, overworked, begging for scraps of love disguised as gratitude, he's gone. In his place is someone stronger, wiser, freer. Someone who finally understands that being a family doesn't mean owing your life to people who never valued it. Being a family means love, respect, and effort on both sides. And if they ever want to earn that again, they'll have to do the one thing they never expected: work for it.